Martin Bashir loves to bash Republicans in bitingly personal terms, but he hit an absolute low in attacking Sarah Palin.
When Mrs. Palin invokes slavery, she doesn't just prove her rank ignorance. She confirms that if anyone truly qualified for a dose of discipline from Thomas Thistlewood, then she would be the outstanding candidate.
That was a reference to slavery days, and that dose of discipline, I hesitate to say this on the air, in case you haven't heard these despicable words, was to have somebody defecate in her mouth.
I wanted to take this opportunity to say sorry to Mrs. Palin and to also offer an unreserved apology to her friends and family, her supporters, our viewers, and anyone who may have heard what I said. My words were wholly unacceptable.
That part I wholly agree with. Joining us now here in Washington, David Zurich, television and media critic for the Baltimore Sun, and in New York, Joe Concha, a columnist for Mediaite. Joe Concha, the MSNBC has put out a statement saying that Martin Bashir is taking responsibility public for his offensive commentary, and it kind of pushes it off on Bashir, and we're handling this matter internally. We have no additional comment. What's your take on the way MSNBC has handled this mess?
They couldn't have handled this any worse, Howie. And let's take it from the apology on, shall we? After that apology was made by Martin Bashir on Monday, hours later, the MSNBC Twitter feed actually promoted the segment from Friday where those deplorable comments were made. So after an apology, if you're still promoting a segment, boy, that's a big issue right there. And that goes right up to management to allow that to even happen. But then also, a day later, Howie, Joe Scarborough goes off the reservation on another network and says, yeah, that apology that Martin Bashir did yesterday, I don't even think he wrote it himself. And yet, Scarborough isn't disciplined in any way. I'm sure if that happened on another network, he would probably be suspended. So clearly, Howie,
well,
the
I'm not
inmates
so sure
are running.
About that. He was being candid about a colleague. Let's keep the focus on
another
Bashir.
network,
right.
though, Howie. Come on. You don't make comments like that about your coworkers there. That's off the reservation, man. I disagree with you on that.
I think Scarborough's the problem.
No, he's not.
So let me take the other side of this. Bashir made what sounded like a pretty sincere apology. Are executives at the network betting that that's enough and they can just skate by without having to address this matter further, leaving aside that he hasn't been suspended or, as far as we know, disciplined in any way?
Howie, look. Executives at the network always want to think it's enough and it's going to blow over and they're going to turn the page and move on. There are a whole bunch of problems here. One, what he said is really sick stuff. I mean, honestly, if I was his supervisor, he would not only probably be suspended, I'd ask him to go talk to someone in HR about what's going on in his head when he says this kind of stuff. But more importantly, what about the culture of MSNBC? Right. Somebody put those graphics up. So, is there no editorial backstop on this thing that this guy can go out and say this thing? It's outrageous.
These are scripted comments, Howie. Exactly. Yeah. And there's a vetting process that goes into that. Before it goes into a teleprompter, copy editor, segment producer, senior producer, executive producer all saw this and said, what could possibly go wrong? And that's because they don't fear their boss, or their boss says, you know what, guys, we're trying to be provocative. His ratings went up 60% from Friday to Monday. Friday the comments, Monday the apology. So between that and you could go on the Twitter feed right now of MSNBC, the promotion of that segment is still up. This is all the gin-up controversy to maybe get people to watch a show that otherwise nobody was watching.
Joe, let me jump in here. Speaking of Twitter, a few people have complained about me for making an issue of this, saying, oh, I'm defending Sarah Palin because she was a contributor at Fox News. I would rip anybody who made these kind of despicable comments about anybody, regardless of political coloration. But you have to say, there hasn't exactly been a huge uproar in the mainstream media about this, other perhaps than on Fox, as opposed to, let's say, that somebody said that about, oh, I don't know, Hillary Clinton.
Exactly. Let's go to the Can You Imagine segment part of this particular talking point. If Rush Limbaugh said this about Sarah Palin, about Hillary Clinton, all right, then what would we be talking about? Or even Sarah Silverman. Then the other side, MSNBC, goes wall-to-wall with this. Instead, we haven't heard a peep outside of Joe Scarborough from any of the women on that network, and particularly from management of that network. And that speaks volumes, the deafening silence over there.
That's part of the larger problem here, that the mainstream media isn't more upset about this. You know, I've been complaining about the way our civic and political conversation on cable TV is debased. And MSNBC has led that drive in a calculated way because they have no journalistic function. They have no repertorial infrastructure anymore for business reasons. And once you go down the road they have gone down of nothing but hosts sitting in front of a camera doing opinion. You have to keep turning it up and turning it up and turning it up and be more and more extreme. And this is what we got. And no one cares. That's what's outrageous. Whatever you care about, whatever you feel about Sarah Palin doesn't matter. The conversation of democracy, you can't have this kind of stuff going on.
Let me just briefly mention that she had likened the national debt to slavery. A lot of people found that comparison offensive. Absolutely fair game to criticize her.
Yes.
Sarah Palin addressed this this morning on Fox News Sunday, and there's an implicit contrast here with MSNBC's handling of Alec Baldwin, who shouted an anti-gay slur, or he disputes that, but that's the allegation, at a photographer, not on the air, outside his New York apartment, and was suspended for a couple of weeks, and insiders tell me he may never come back to that network. Let's take a listen to the former governor on Fox News Sunday.
As for the, the networks condoning those type of statements, because there's been no punishment of the fella who said these words, that's hypocrisy. That's, a given, though. When a conservative woman says something that they take offense, they usually just kind of poo-poo it, laugh it off. It's no big deal.
A brief comment from each of you. David Zurich, double standard for conservative women as Sarah Palin puts it?
I think there is some of that, Howie, but the real question are, where are people like Tom Brokaw and Chuck Todd, who claim to speak for NBC News and the brand? Why haven't they called Bashir out and the lack of punishment for him?
Joe Concha.
Very good point, David. I think ultimately the pressure will come from NBC News on this one, and particularly somebody like Matt Lauer, who lost his Palin interview. He was going to go to Wasilla. That's a big ratings get for today, who's battling Good Morning America. They've been getting beat by them a lot lately, and that's a difference maker there to get Palin up in Wasilla. So the fact that Lauer lost that interview, I'm sure that he is griping about this internally, and maybe that's where the pressure is going to come from, not so much from outside news organizations that have completely dropped the ball on this, Howie.
I reported that Palin had canceled that interview as a protest against NBC not taking action against Bashir.